Top of the morning to you. Alyssa Thomas Signs with Project B. Caitlin Clark, will she be the next $100 million a year athlete with Project B? The WNBA and the NBA, are they going to come together and progress, get the CBA done? We'll talk about that and more today on the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. Folks, you know ESPN has reported backwards, forwards on the WNBA. And it looks like there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of things have been said, but now there's a new league. It's called the ProjectBLeague. It's a global women's basketball league, also a global men's basketball league. That's in its inauguration, hasn't started, hasn't tipped up a basketball, but has come to the agreement that they're going to pay players $2 million, which you've got a couple players who are very, very good players in the WNBA, no doubt about it, Gumake, and also Alyssa Thomas. Now, the question Money Mike has is, the Project B is in an over 30 league, because the players that you're coming to get, do they have national endorsements? Are they the top players in the WNBA? In the public's eye, or those who have seen or looked and have watched the WNBA over the years of time, will know that Alyssa Thomas and Gumake is a very good basketball player. There's no doubt about it. But now the game has changed. Now the game has moved to individual young stars. The NBA is a very young league. People have said time and time again, the NBA doesn't have any stars. The NBA has superstars. But what you have is an old guard in the NBA, the Kevin Durant, the James Harden. You know, even Russell Westbrook is wrapping it up, right? They're wrapping it up. Their careers, LeBron James, they're wrapping it up. The torch has to pass. It's like you see the torch from LeBron James, now you see Luka, right? And looking at Luka, you know, I mean, it's a little bad luck. I mean, the general manager gets fired for the trade. Luka's got 2 general managers fired for trades. Why? Because they didn't think he was good enough or the right person for the team. What does Money Mike mean by that? Vlade Divac was the general manager of the Sacramento Kings. He took, I think it was Brantley, and he could have had an opportunity to select Luka. He didn't. Cost him his job. Dico went over there, traded Luka to the Lakers. What happened? Cost him his job, right? So at the end of the day, you've got the old guard of the NBA that's going right on out into the sunset. And now what you got is you got the old guard of the WNBA is riding out into the sunset, folks. They're riding out. This is their last stance, rightfully so. But here's what I mean and what I'm talking about. When you talk about Titan business, right? Because you got Adam Silver, and Adam Silver is global. NBA is global. Every country there, France, Italy, Germany, they've been all over. They sell lots of jerseys, lots of merchandise there. So they got a good footprint on an international. And you got to look at it a couple different ways, right? Titan business does different ways. Money Mike will always tell you, coming back and looking at it from a perspective of opportunities, or looking at the WNBA as a corporate enterprise business and what it's going to do. It's a global enterprise business now, is the fact of, you go back and me and Stanky, John Stanky, CEO, he says, Mike, what's the challenge? Well, you know what? They've got a problem here with salary. You got a problem with people who have been in the league a long time. They're not going to change their opinion, right? So how do we do it? He goes, well, I don't know. Let me call Adam Silver. Okay, Stanky's going to call Adam Silver and say, here's your challenge. You got old guard people been around. They just feel they've been mistreated and they don't want anything to do. What can we do? Titan Business is going to come up with an exit strategy. What's the exit strategy? We need an exit strategy, right? So what do we need to do? We need to come up with something that gives the players in the WNBA an exit strategy, somewhere they can go, that they can leave our league and feel good about themselves, right? You got to understand, the WNBA wears a patch that says Emeralds on it, right? Emirates on it, okay, that's Saudi, okay, they're already there. Saudi Investment Bank, they're already doing business in Saudi Arabia. They're doing business in Nigeria. They're doing business in Germany. They're doing business in Asia, China, you name it, in the Euro League, right? Because what's the target market here for these ladies to go over there? In the target market as it was, and I've been through the dance, folks, with players, NBA players who are trying to get in the league, have to go overseas and play, and it's not what you think. Because here's where I'm going with this. for everything that you complained about, right? You complained about the leadership of Kathy Engelbert. So now you're going in leadership you don't even know. They just put $2 million on the table. You complained about the officials in the WNBA. Folks, I'm here to tell you the officials are going to be worse. If you go overseas, you're going to realize officials are way worse than the WNBA. It's way more physical, and they're going to let you have more contact, right? You're going into a place where you have freedom of speech in America. But over there, the countries are run differently. And if you happen to do something or say something that's offensive, and it turns out to be offense, you got to look at this, because Brittany Griner just went to prison over there, right? So the value of it to the veterans, of Happy Veterans Day. Money Mike was off air yesterday. I was with my brother, a veteran of the Army. But you look at this and you say to yourself, now, the whole goal was to keep our players on the American soil. Caitlin Clark is made in the USA. Caitlin Clark will play in the USA. That's as far as that ship's going to go. Caitlin Clark is what you call a restricted free agent. Keep in mind the players who are headed over to play in that league. You have to understand, they're not walking over there with sponsors. Okay, Caitlin Clark has sponsors for American soil. You have Gatorade, you have State Farm, okay, you have Stanley. This is American soil we're on, and we're building up the Women's Basketball Association, the WNBA, 100%, which it could turn to the World National Women's Basketball Association, depends on where you want to take it. So when you look at that, and you look at ESPN, and you look at Stephen A. and where they went now and where they started with the WNBA, they're about to eliminate the entire cast because it's went wrong. And now you got Carrie Champion, who's a very, very, very well-renowned journalist, broadcaster, understand it, has called out Stephen A. for his disrespect to women and the women that have been on the show. And what happened is Stephen A. is Monica McNutt, and ESPN has just gotten tired. They're saying, look, guys, we're going to give this to the NFL Network. We're going to bring some new blood in here because it just went bad. And half of the staff, or all of the staff for ESPN, is supporting the ProjectBLeague, but you must understand your employer is supporting the WNBA. So now you've got to pull that cord, and you've got this, and you look at the difference of how people act and what happened to Stephen A. and how Carrie Champion and scoring women are coming forward saying you don't know what you are. He's been a part of this WNBA, of drowning out the WNBA on ESPN, and everybody's gotten sick of it, right? So now you've got the whole cast is all excited, but they're drowning it out because ESPN is saying, look, we support Disney, right? We're with Disney as an employer, and Disney is a sponsor of the WNBA. So there's really nowhere to go in that situation. But then it went a step further with Pat McAfee. And Pat McAfee did an incredible thing. He was a kicker for the Green Bay Packers. But what happened with Pat McAfee is they were going to fire his staff, the production team that runs the Pat McAfee show. And Pat McAfee said, no, I'm going to pay for my whole staff. Well, this went sideways on Stephen A. Smith on ESPN because Molly needed a contract. While Stephen A. was gloating his $125 million, he could have gave Molly some of that money and they could have kept going, but he didn't. And that's where the disconnect came, and now it's just kind of spiraling out of control because there's two things in life you don't want to have. One is a scorned woman. The other is a scorned black woman, because she's going to go for blood, and Stephen A. Smith is just going to go through the blender. Now, after saying all that, and I get right back to it, to the exit strategy that the WNBA has put in place to give these women a place to go. When you say Project B, and you're talking about raising a $5 billion valuation for the men and the women, that's what the target is of private equity money. Quote, no Saudi money. But if you look at that, 10% of the salary base for the players should be at least $500 million. Well, where's that 10% at? It's at $122 million for the women. I have no idea what they're going to pay the men, but I do know this. Maverick Carter was with LeBron James. He started out in the project. He dropped out of the project. There's some loose ends to the project. Don't necessarily know what that might be, but there's definitely some loose ends in there. But the point I'm making is everybody's talking about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is made in America, Des Moines, Iowa. Caitlin Clark will stay in America. Caitlin Clark is what you call a restricted free agent. What does that mean, folks? That means that Caitlin Clark, anything that anybody can offer Caitlin Clark, internationally or abroad, can be offered here in the WNBA, and she's already getting it. Okay, and you got to look at this correctly because now the league is changing. The salary structure is going to be different. You're going to cut a lot of players because now the value of keeping 15 players or 14 players on a roster, well, 5 of them are going to be on minimum contracts at least because now you cannot afford. And for the players who are looking at the future of the WNBA and are looking to build super teams like the men, do not take a salary cut. LeBron James marketed that. Do not take less money to play together. The WNBA, like the NBA owners, like the Dodgers and everybody else that wins championships, you pay luxury tax. So don't fight for the money and discount the money at the same time. The point I'm just trying to make here with the Project B and how everybody gets thirsty because they hear a little money, I can see why. The women have not made any money. So when you throw up a figure of $2 million, everybody's at attention, but that's what the WNBA is paying. They're paying that now. I mean, I don't quite understand it. They're giving you a salary and a compensation with the growth. So when you get to this stage, folks, you must understand Project B right now may not even launch off in 2026. I'm going to be the first to tell you because there's so many legal and international ramifications that must be done to launch a league like that on someone else's soil. And if you're not using the Saudi money, then whose money are you using? Because $5 billion has to be accounted for. And it's not like the NFL, right? The NFL, if you give a player $100 million guaranteed, you've got to put that money in a trust. You can't float the money. So just saying you're paying these players $2 million, but is the money going in the trust? Is it guaranteed? What's guaranteeing your salary? What are we doing for living conditions? And what are we doing for the officials who are going to be worse than you'll ever see because it sounds good? And you got the people here who are trying to understand that this is something that they believe the women can get, but it's impossible. It's impossible to do because now you don't have the best players. And the women, I will tell you this, the best players in the world of women basketball are not in the WNBA. I'll be the first to tell you. Japan's got some super guards. Asia's got some super talent. There's a lot of talent out there, and the WNBA wants that talent to come here, and then you'll go make less money overseas. It's been the opposite way before, where you went overseas and made money. Now they're going to reverse that, and now you come here to make the money, and you'll make less money over there. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. Folks, I wanted to tap in and touch on that and really let you know, don't be so fooled by what you may hear immediately, and understand billionaires, they tactically strategize. They come up with an extra strategy. They're trying to get players out of the WNBA. And the players who are signing, I want you to keep a close eye. I want you to look at the national endorsements that they have of who are they being sponsored by and how are they going on someone else's soil. Because if you're signing contracts here in America, they're not going to allow you. Nike's not interested unless it's a Nike league, right? The WNBA is not interested unless it's a WNBA. Disney's not in, Amazon's not interested, okay? Because it's not. And when you compare it to Unrivaled, it's not going to outdo Unrivaled. Project B will not outdo Unrivaled because Unrivaled is going to be on American soil. And the game now is about bringing it on American soil and paying these women. So what did Unrivaled do? They just went out and started contracting younger players. You can have the over 30 players. The WNBA has given you an exit strategy. Take it. It does not mean that you're going to come back and play in this league. And pretty soon you're going to find out all kinds of things are going to happen. Start in November. Couldn't start. It has to start in December. And then all of a sudden it's challenging the WNBA because the WNBA has a very tight window of schedule which is going to get bigger because now you got to utilize arenas and the dates and the conflicts, makes you have a longer schedule. It's part of the business, folks. So everybody's being thirsty. I don't see it. I see a 30-year league backed up by another 130-year league that has enough revenue and capital that any other player that's made in the USA will play in the USA. And that's just the way it is. Happy Veteran Day to the veterans from yesterday. I wasn't on the air, but I'll tell you this. Caitlin Clark is made in the USA, and Caitlin Clark's going to stay in the USA. And that's just the way it's going to be. We'll see you soon.